This episode of the 12 Hike Podcast is brought to you by Leland Lures and their revolutionary Trout Magnet. The Trout Magnet has been catching more trout than any other lure for over 20 years. Don't believe me? Don't just take my word on it. Field & Stream has listed the Trout Magnet as one of their must-have trout lures and one of the top 50 lures of all time. They work, plain and simple. Rig them on ultralight tackle with 2-pound test and a small float, and you will instantly turn into a master angler. It is also a great lure to introduce your children to fishing, because they catch fish no matter where you are. You can find the Trout Magnet, Crappie Magnet, and other Leland Lure products at Walmart or order directly from their website, troutmagnet.com. The 12 Hike Podcast is going to be doing a Trout Magnet lure giveaway soon, so stay tuned and keep getting outdoors. Nature is the door to happiness.
The things that you see, the experiences that you have while kayaking stand out.
Not only is it people's own personal kind of spiritual experiences that we try to create in the wilderness for people, it's also like this community building thing, right?
There are lots of keys you can use to unlock it.
And like we all got to be Goonies for a little bit if we grew up in the 80s. That was an absolute dream to go find, a pirate's chest full of gold.
Now, as you could tell, we're pretty passionate about catfishing. We could keep talking all night long, really.
Let us help you find your key. Welcome to the 12 Hike Podcast.
Open my eyes, and here's this Milky Way, and I'm looking at this, and like it was an instant reaction. Like I went to nudge somebody next to me because I wanted them to see the same thing I was seeing. I wanted to share that with somebody, and
In the United States today, there are as many as 45 million individuals that suffer from some type of mental health illness. These issues range from mild anxiety and depression, all the way to severe mental health issues that cannot be treated with simple therapy. The treatments vary just as much as the illnesses themselves. The most prevalent form of treatment is medication. At least 1 in 6 adults in 2013 reported using some type of psychiatric drug. While medication is effective, there are other forms of treatment that have the same result with none of the side effects some medications have. Wilderness therapy utilizes isolation in natural settings, physical challenges, and introspective study to find the core of your mental health struggles. Colorado Recovery, based in Boulder, Colorado, has instituted a wilderness therapy program headed by Dawn and Katie. Their program is unique because they are working to make sure that a subset of our culture, individuals with more severe mental health issues, have a chance to integrate into society without the fear of letting their own mental illnesses define them as a human. This is Zach Jenkins. Thanks for listening to the 12 Hike Podcast. Been connected okay for you guys?
I think so, yeah. My internet connection is not the best, so if you have some issues, just let us know.
Well, that's funny because I just did one with a couple of people from back where I used to live. I moved here from Ohio, and the lady I was talking to was from northern Kentucky, and she made the rest of her family not use the internet for the evening because if they did, it would slow her down to the point where she couldn't even do the interview.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna text my neighbor and ask her not to use the internet.
I don't think we have that problem around here. Back in southern Ohio, northern Kentucky, things are pretty antiquated. Around here, it's nice and modern. I like it.
Awesome.
Are you in Boulder?
No, I live in Loveland.
You're in Loveland. Okay, cool. I'm in Longmont. Right now we're in Boulder, but I live in Longmont now.
When we first moved here in September, we lived in Longmont, but we decided to come a little farther north and live in Loveland. That's where my wife works.
Okay, cool.
What does your wife do?
She's an accountant. Yeah, she brings in the big bucks, so I can do silly stuff like this. Okay.
Well, we're feeling silly tonight too, so hopefully this isn't being serious.
Well, I'll tell you, we've had a lot of fun doing these. Everybody that I've had on has had a good time, and it's nothing formal. It's not like some kind of edited interview that's going to go in some big publication. We're talking. That's all we're doing.
Okay.
So I guess we might as well go ahead and start off by getting a little bit of background information on you two. Are you both Colorado natives?
This is Katie speaking. No, I'm actually from Maine and moved out to Colorado when I started Naropa University. So I've been in Colorado for about almost a decade now, actually.
Really? What did you think about Maine? I've never been there.
I love Maine. I hate the winters. I hate the humidity in the summer. And yeah, I moved out here because I'd be closer to the mountains and the outdoors and what I love to do, which is to hike and backpack, is so accessible. And yeah, so I haven't left.
How about you, Dawn?
So originally I'm from Connecticut, and I will say that I moved out here originally to ski, and then I went back home, had to deal with some family stuff that was happening, and then I moved back too because I got into Naropa University in Boulder.
So what is Naropa University? Does it specialize in wilderness therapy or?
Sort of, yes. Naropa is the one and only wilderness therapy program. I don't believe you can get a master's degree specializing in wilderness therapy anywhere else in the United States.
Mm-mm.
So, I mean, being that exclusive, are they pretty picky about who they let in?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so most of the wilderness therapy cohorts exist of between, I think, like 10 and 13 people. I'm not sure how many people apply each year. But yeah, you have to come out to Colorado. You have to do an in-person interview. You have to do...
Well, that's interesting because I don't know very much about wilderness therapy. So to get a master's in wilderness therapy, what does that program even look like? I mean, what's the requirements? How long is it? What all do you do?
So it's a 3-year program, and I can't remember how many days in total you spend in the backcountry, but it has to be, I think, over 60 days in total that you spend in the backcountry between a wilderness intensive, your first year, and then there's 2 or 3 backpacking trips that you do. There's a river trip that you do, a rock climbing trip, a horseback riding section. I'm trying to remember what else, but it's a really cool program. It really, for me personally, it was an opportunity for me to really connect with my cohort and really learn about, I'll say, secure attachment and what that means and what that looks like.
So when you're in the backcountry, is there a curriculum, a set of things you're supposed to be doing to get a better understanding of wilderness therapy?
Well, we like to use the term or talk about wilderness therapy as a mirror. So a lot of times, I'll give a personal example. So for me, when I was in the backcountry, I had trouble letting go of control. So what would come up while I was in the wilderness and on these trips is me wanting to, always be in control and always be kind of like the center of like, okay, what's happening, and delegating people to do tasks. And I noticed that I needed to really just like step back and see what it would be like for me to take a different role. So it's more about just the experience. It's an experiential therapy, so it's happening right there in the moment.
So being an experimental theory, what kind of science is there behind it? How long has it been studied? I mean, what's the general consensus on it?
So originally, experiential therapies like wilderness therapy originally is you'll typically hear about adolescents going out in the wilderness for like 30 days at a time and them like learning how to, start a fire, cook their own food, get along with other people. So that's traditionally what wilderness therapy is, but I'm not sure if I have an exact answer for your question.
So I guess in that case, do they consider something like Boy Scouts wilderness therapy? Or is that kind of on a different plane?
I would think, so this is Katie speaking, I would think Boy Scouts would be more wilderness adventure, and wilderness therapy specifically is actually stepping into this like parallel process of really looking at how you I'm getting really nervous.
Oh, you're fine. Hey, listen, I can edit all of the dead spaces and ums out. It's fine.
Yeah. Wilderness therapy. Okay, so it's this opportunity to like it's not just the therapist and the client in a room. Wilderness therapy offers this opportunity to have like this third relationship, which is the natural world, which we are so like deeply connected to in our roots as humans, and our processes in general, like death, dying, rebirth, all of these things that happen in the natural world are actually happening within us too, and we don't often have these opportunities to stop and reflect on this. And so the natural world can give us a place to really like slow down and see that it's like happening beyond our own personal experiences. And
it's powerful stuff. It's powerful.
You brought up something pretty interesting about the slowing down. I just did an episode with a guy that started an organization for military veterans.
Okay.
And they have a lot of testimonials from the guys and the women that go on the trip. And one of the first things they say is the pace. They physically have to slow down, mm-hmm. and that helps them more than anything. And I think so. Backtrack just a minute. When I first looked up Colorado recovery, my automatic assumption was drug abuse help, because that's where I come from. That's the big problem where I moved mm-hmm. from. But you guys do a lot more than that.
Yeah, and I think recovery has that sort of that word has this like meaning that like, oh, recovery means from substance abuse, and actually for us it's quite different. It's recovery from mental illness, which also can include substance use or abuse, and we'll see that both hand in hand. So yeah, I think that's kind of been one of the bigger like challenges of our organization is people essentially think that we're a substance recovery center, and we're not. We focus mostly on people with severe and persistent mental illness like schizophrenia and major depressive disorders, schizoaffective.
Yeah, and whenever Kelly told me that, I kind of really didn't know what to say, because some people in my wife's family have had some pretty tragic issues with mental health, such as bipolar, schizophrenia. And when she told me that you guys do wilderness therapy with individuals that suffer from some of these illnesses, I was kind of taken aback. I mean, to me, I didn't think something like that could help those individuals.
Why?
It was just, I don't know.
This conversation, like, why don't you think?
I have this in my mind. I have this preconceived notion that severe mental illness has to be treated with medication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I've never been exposed to anything like this to treat a mental illness. So this is all new for me.
Yeah, and I guess what I want to speak to, Zach, is like, I think that you're kind of speaking to the stigma right there of like, yeah, like people with persistent mental illness need to be treated with medication. And I think that is one very small piece of how we treat people at Colorado Recovery in regards to their recovery. There are many different aspects to to how we approach folks, getting well. And one of